how to get a job at a startup in Silicon Valley.
In part 1, I covered the mechanics of how to apply to a job at a startup.
All right, so let's transition to the second part of how you actually figure out where to apply. Obviously, the strategy that I just described is very high effort. It takes a lot of time, and you definitely can't do that for 50 startups, let alone 10 startups. So how do you go from, scrolling through TechCrunch or Crunchbase and just seeing, these endless lists of startups to actually knowing which of these is worth your time to apply to? So I'm going to give you 2 strategies. The first is a shortcut approach, and the second is a life skill that if you hone throughout the years will make you into a ninja level founder, but it takes time to develop. Okay, so the shortcut approach that I would take if I were a college student and just figuring out which startups are even on my shortlist, I would look at which startups have recently raised a Series B or C. So the way the kind of funding rounds work is you have seed rounds and Series A, those are considered early stage. By the time a startup has gotten to their B and C round, those are considered growth rounds. It means that a startup has figured out PMF, product market fit, or a decent amount of it such that they're ready to just grow. And so these are great times to come into a startup because they're high momentum situations and there's just going to be way too much to do at these companies. And so if you are someone who is able to just get in there, deliver value, figure out what needs to be done, there will be tremendous opportunities for you to rise very, very quickly in those ranks. So that would be the shortcut that I would use. If you know VCs and other great strategies, asking them who they think are high momentum startups right now, and put those on your short list. Once you have the short list, you'll still need to kind of go through and see which companies you personally click with. You can either click with the company, you can click with the founders. So from that short list, your personal preferences will kind of help you narrow it down from there. Okay, so that is the shortcut method. That'll lead to good results. Now let's talk about the expert way to do this, which frankly, I don't expect people to be good at right out of college, but it's a skill that you kind of need to intentionally practice for many, many years. And this killer life skill that will make you a ninja level founder if you want to be a founder someday is to develop the spidey sense of knowing when people are amazing before the world has recognized them as amazing. If you met Mark Zuckerberg when he was in high school, would you know that he was incredibly high potential? If you met him in college, would you know? If you met him right when he started Facebook, would you know? At what point would you know? Obviously, when the entire world has recognized that someone is incredible, it's a little bit too late. It's never too late, but just the entire world is trying to get their attention. When you're a startup founder, ideally you have this spidey sense so that, in the perfect world, all of your early hires, all of your early employees would be people who then go start billion-dollar companies later in their life and are all extremely famous and reputable 20 years later. But you found them and you worked with them and you saw that talent and potential in them before the rest of the world did. The way this applies to now, if you're a college student looking for a startup job, is that you can go earlier. You can find amazing seed stage startups and Series A startups to work at. They are just still figuring out their product market fit, so it's more of a risk. But the way it's not a risk is if you have that really developed spidey sense of who is amazing. So let's say you're trying to find a job at a startup and there's a founder that you follow on social media, you really like their content, you read their blogs, you really connect with their way of seeing the world, you think they're incredibly intelligent in the content they put out there. I want to work with this person. This is an incredibly smart person, and I just want to be around them because there's so much I can learn from them. When you find that person, and if you're right, then that is an incredibly worthwhile experience to go after. I think some generally good career advice to follow is figure out the smartest person you know, and then do whatever it is they need you to do. If you optimize for working for smart people, things will just work out in your career. Basically, it's hard to go wrong if you just follow that, but it can be hard, especially when you're young, to figure out who is the smartest person I know, Are they actually smart? It's hard to develop the spidey sense. So the best advice I have is just recognize that that's a skill, and then just start training yourself to recognize the people around you, your friends. Who do you think is high potential? And then you'll kind of get evidence in a year's time, in 3 years' time, in 8 years' time, and see how it matches your predictions.